Hold my head up high, tears I cry. All the things I've been through. Not a day goes by in my life. I'm thankful for my issues. Day ones hold me down when I really did have none. Now bad in the platform. My day ones hold me down when I really did have none. Now bad in the platform. My day ones hold me down when I really did have none. Now bad I'm about to take some pain.
All right. When did you first meet EI?
So me and EI, it's funny, I still can't get used to the whole EI thing, but because I always know him as Steven. I've known Steven since we were probably about 10, 11 years old, or I'd say right about the middle school age. We were playing Pop Warner football together over with the Venice Vikings, and then we were also in the same middle school classes, so we really started to hit it off on that end. So yeah, I mean, that's almost, 20 years now.
What was he like as a student? Like, how was his first?
I know that's what I was kind of going to intersect in. Is like, yeah, especially in middle school, we were clowning a lot. I mean, those were the days where you kind of just goofed off just for the sake of doing it, just to get attention. But really, all harmless stuff back in those days, especially at the age of 12. There was really nothing too crazy going on. I mean, I think it would be just like any other kid in America. I mean, it was at that point in our lives, we weren't really doing anything crazy. Yeah.
So I have a really funny question that two people confirmed for me so far.
Mm-hmm.
Did he have a short man complex?
I think so. You know, and then that was the one story that I definitely wanted to tell today was one of my earliest memories of him was when we played Pop Warner football. We actually both played older lighter, meaning because there were weight classes within Pop Warner where you had to be within a certain range. So we played on the younger team. But anyway, and Steven, they actually had a minimum weight. And Steven played middle linebacker, like nose tackle. Like, this dude was good. He was the team. He was the leader. He was the one that in the beginning of the games, he'd be amping us all up. That was back in the day with, if you remember the song, We Ready. That would be Steven leading the whole team. But anyway, back to the point of that story was this dude was so small that even as an older guy, he would put change and rocks in his pockets just to make the minimum weight. And then once he got on the field, I mean, everything was good. And we were good those days, too. I mean, we actually went to South Florida and Miami and played for that. We got our ass kicked down there. But regardless, I mean, we were like 12-0 on this part of the state. And Steven was the leader. He really was. He was the vocal leader, and he did his part on defense as well.
That's awesome. So he did have... Well, before I even asked that, how was he in school? Like, was he real studious, or was he like a class?
Nah, he was a class clown. Steven was the class clown, man. And I mean, that's why I think we kicked it off so well. That's how, I mean, I like to laugh. He likes to laugh. So, you know, we had a good group of friends those days. But, yeah, without a doubt. He's not stupid by any means. But when those days, 6th, 7th grade, yeah, we were clowning, man.
How did the absence of his father affect him as a person?
You know, I've thought about that a lot in his life, and I don't know because I've really never met his father, but it's something that I question as we got older, and you know, the absence of his father and how much of a, you know, impact that it possibly had made. I mean, I remember when I was probably about 14, 15, when we were starting to get into the real trouble, you know, my father he pulled me back more or less, like, you know, you're done doing that. You know, you're going to go keep playing football, doing that. And I think that sometimes I don't know if Steven had somebody to do that for him. And then, you know, you kind of saw where it progressed.
When did you notice he started to get in trouble?
So, I mean, and then, you know, to continue on with the same story, after middle school, we were all pretty innocent. By about 9th grade, we played freshman football together. And then the size was definitely starting to make a difference, and I think he was starting to get influence in other ways. So, you know, that was our last year of playing football together, and I think that had a huge part to do with it. You know, once the structure went away from school and sports, you know, everything else was opened up. And me and him both were, you know, we were, how do I say this? We liked that life, you know, of kind of being bad and doing these things. So, and then he took it further and further and further. So I would say by about the age of 15-ish, even before we started driving, I could tell that he was going another way. I remember him actually coming after our freshman year of high school. He came and he was in summer school. And he would come and we would smoke pot every day. I would go to football workouts in the morning. He would come over after doing summer school and smoke pot every day. And at that point, I was starting to see that he was potentially going another way. Once again, as an adolescent myself, you know, I didn't really know where I was going either. But I had the structure of at least, you know, being able to go to, you know, doing workouts and things like that. I would say at that point is when I saw that he was starting to, you know, go in another direction. So yeah, at about the age of 14, when we went to high school, we were getting influenced by things that we probably shouldn't have been doing. And I had two of my cousins came down from Tampa, and they moved into the house. And this is when me and Steven were hanging out a lot. And without a doubt, we looked up to them. We thought they were cool as hell. I mean, these were one of those people. I mean, they came down, beating everybody up, kind of living like the 2005 rap music life, like, if you will. Like, it's exactly what it was. Like, and we looked up to them. We were the baggy clothes, and but without a doubt, I think that had a huge impact on Steven's life. And this is what I was saying earlier about, like, and when the absence of his father is when my father actually, after all that happened, even with my own cousin, pulled me back and he said, "You're not hanging out with them anymore. You're going to hang out with your other friends," and that's that. And then I think even Steven still was talking to my cousins while they were down here and even weren't allowed at my house. And so without a doubt, they had a big influence on where we were in those days.
Was this the time, like, did he start to do drugs and sell drugs at this time?
Yeah, no, this was really probably, other than marijuana, you know, and then other than marijuana, really that wasn't starting to get involved. I would say by the time that we were about, over there, Catalina, I would say by the time that we were about graduating from high school, I could tell that, you know, I wasn't as close to him in those days, to be honest, you know, from 16 to 18, he was starting to do his own thing. I mean, we were always close. If we ever see each other, you already know how it is. But as far as, I didn't really know what he was doing, but I had an idea. And I would say by about 17, 18 is when he was really starting to hit the streets.
When he went to prison the first, second, and third time, were you aware that he went to prison?
So here's how, like, my recollection of the whole thing. The first time I don't have as much of a recollection. And then when he came out the second time, even the first and the second, I don't really remember him going as much. It's been 10 plus years at this point. But I remember him getting out the second time and coming out and still doing some crazy shit. I mean, you know, doing drugs and coming out, hanging out of the house at like 2 o'clock in the morning, even if not necessarily with me, coming with other people, knocking on the window. But the third time is when, before he went the third time and the final time, pray to God, that we were hanging out that whole time, so I was fully aware of the third situation. But the first two, I didn't really have as much. So, and then this is a crazy story, but I'm putting myself out there this time. So yeah, this was back in, you know, right before Steven did his third stint, and I was out at like 2, 3 in the morning with some people down at Emerald City down in Port Charlotte, Florida, if anybody knows what that is. And I roll back there at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Steven calls me, and he's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Dude, I just left here." He's like, "Why didn't you call me?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm thinking about leaving." Like, I had lived in Philadelphia for a couple of times. Like, I got my Eagles shirt on and everything. My dad's from the area. But anyway, I was like, "Dude, like, want to just pack up the car and you want to go to Philadelphia?" So no lie, we were at 3 o'clock in the morning, drunk as hell, and we jumped in his car, his Altima, the same one he crashed when he got in trouble the third time. But we cruised up there with no power lock windows. We were smoking cigarettes the whole time up, drinking beer through 75, propping the doors open to get the smoke out. We made it all the way up there. We went to like Washington, D.C. We saw one of our friends of a friend's. He let us stay with them, and ended up going to Philly and New York with another friend of ours, Cena, which I'm sure he'll be involved with this too. And but anyway, just crazy. I mean, it gives you a good example of the way that we were living our lives at that point, man. It was a carefree world. You know, like I said, we were like 23 at that time. It was more or less, let's go. But we literally packed our shit up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were sitting around in Philadelphia and New York back and forth for, what we make it, a solid probably like 2-3 weeks. So, but yeah, that was a wild time. And then we ended up both coming back to Florida. And I guess, well, we hung out for another 4 or 5 months before it all went down. And then there was another instance where me and him were driving down to like South Philadelphia. I mean, wasted, drunk, been probably drinking all day. And there was a cop in front of us and a cop in back of us. And dude, we were just like sitting in the car, freestyling. I can't freestyle. He's good. He's a lot better at it than I am. He's pretty good at it. I can't. But I'm just over there like, and then the whole time, yeah, Steven was like, yeah, thinking he's gonna go back to jail. We got open containers in the whole thing. I mean, he's still hot from just getting out. Back to the little man syndrome, without a doubt. I mean, I think Steven, he felt like he had something to prove, even if he did not. And even he would get expelled through high school from fighting. And then I remember even after his second stint getting out, when he cocked Diesel fighting all these dudes. And there was one night, and they were all friends of mine, Jesus and John. But anyway, we all run out to, he fights one of my friends, Jesus, and then all his friends come out in a parking garage, and it all just goes down.
So he was quite a fighter.
Yeah, man, well, especially once we were out drinking. He was looking for it, and he used to piss me off on that one because I'm kind of not like if I have to do it, I'll do it. But that was definitely something that me and him would argue about in the mornings. But he was definitely, he was looking for it. He had something to prove. He had a chip on his shoulder. The night that he ended up getting in the fight with Jesus, like I said, he ended up fighting him in one parking garage in downtown Sarasota, Florida, and then basically that happened. I was able to kind of intervene and be like, all right, let's go our separate ways. We walked back to the parking garage, and here comes Jesus with a bunch of my other friends. Oh, you want to jump Jesus? Which was, everybody's drunk. I mean, nobody's making any logical sense at this point. But anyway, he ends up beating Jesus up again to the point that he has to go to the hospital. Any given situation that there was something like, who's going to be the bigger dog? Like,
yeah.
We're going to find that. I mean, here's another story that I actually tell everybody all the time is I've never really had to fight in my life. My cousins, the ones that I talked about earlier, they came down and beat everybody up that ever had a problem with me. And I remember one time at Beach Club, the same place that he ended up getting arrested from after. But there was this one dude that was talking to me. I was talking to this girl in Russian because I took a few years of Russian. And he's like, oh, you're anti-American? Dude, I didn't even argue with him. And Steven was right there, and I'm just like, yo, Steven, this dude's giving me... Oh, you got a problem with Jimbo? Dude, this dude just looks at him. He's like, I didn't know he was your friend. I was like, yeah, all right, back to my conversation. But yeah, I tell that story constantly.
The third situation, I mean, how did you feel once you heard what happened?
Well, to be honest with you, I was teaching at a high school at the time, and we had one out the night before. It was Wednesday night at Beach Club in Sarasota, Florida, and it was ladies' night. But we used to go out there all the time, and we all drove there together. It was me, him, and one other guy, and we couldn't get a hold of him. So honestly, we had no idea what was going on, and I actually had to go teach at the school in the morning. But anyway, I guess what I'm getting at is I went that next morning and I saw it. I still had Facebook at the time. I went on Facebook and I saw the story, and my initial feeling was it almost felt like I lost somebody like through death. I was like, I'm not going to see him anymore. So it was almost like a mourning situation more than it was just like, somebody's going to jail.
That's deep. That's really deep. What was known for, like, reputation-wise?
Well, like I said, I mean, when we were young, football, I mean, he was a good athlete. He was always a class clown, funny. And then without a doubt, by the time we got to, 18, 19, I mean, he was hustling. I mean, he was making a lot of money and doing the things that we're not supposed to do and we're told not to. And then but after that, since I've seen him, from his releases, I can definitely tell that his life has changed a lot in terms of where his priorities are at. I don't know. I've seen him change in so many different ways, to be honest with you. I mean, and I know that the way that this documentary will go as far as like who he is now, but I've seen that in him for a long time, and I think it's been a constant internal battle. And I think that he's been trying to figure a lot of these things out as well. And, I'm happy to see this time him coming out, for him to, it seems like he's focused, and I don't foresee, having the same negative consequences coming from, going through this again.
Mm-hmm. Did you notice his change, like, spiritually?
Without a doubt. Even when he came out the second time, man. And sometimes I think when you're in jail, it's easier to be more. It's easier to be spiritual in there because you don't have a lot, and then you get out here. When he got out the second time, he had the spiritual. He wanted to do it, but I think a lot of the influences were there at that time. We were all 23 years old. Everybody that we knew, everybody we went to high school with, everybody was out there partying and doing different. So I mean, I think that it was hard, and it wore down on us. Because without a doubt, there was probably a matter of maybe 6 to 8 months since he got out the second one and did his third stint. And from that 6 to 8 months, we hung out pretty much daily. But I could see the progression he was slipping. He was starting to lose his spirituality and getting back into the streets. Not even in terms of selling it, but just being in it. But I could tell it was always within him, and I know that he always wanted to be a part of it, and he knew he'd be a better person if he did it. And so, I'm happy to see what he's doing now, obviously.
Now that he's free, what do you think his biggest challenges are going to be?
I mean, without pointing out the obvious, staying away from the streets. But, and that's it. I mean, the things that influence you to do the wrong things, drugs and alcohol and, women. I mean, the things that most of us fall into is the challenge. If you keep those things away from your life, you're going to be able to stay on the path that you want to stay.
That's gold. So you can start off just by giving me your name, your relations to EI, like how you know him, and then you can go on from there.
Okay.
And rolling.
Okay, my name's James Laurie. I was an assistant football coach for the Pop Warner Venice Vikings, where I met Steven pretty much at that same time. Him and Jimmy started hanging out in school and stuff and playing football together. Good kid when he grew up. Small, tough little kid.
Did he have good leadership qualities?
Good leadership qualities, good. On the football field, he kind of took over for as small as he was. He, like I said, he was tough. He'd knock your lights out if it didn't matter, but he was a good football player. And then I just kind of watched him through the years go down the wrong path, doing stupid stuff. All of them, not just him. He just happened to get caught, probably. But, or was just more aggressive. I don't know.
What's your biggest concern for him now, that he's free?
Hopefully, I just hope he stays out of trouble. I mean, I'm here for him if he needs anything, so. But, stay out of trouble and take the right path, We all make mistakes, so,
Yeah.